Growing up, I think most people in my family and in my community expected me to become a visual artist. It wasn't until much later in my life that I discovered what my true passion was.
I think the women in our family are very strong women. My name is Josephine Lobato.
My name is Josephine Lobato.
My name is Jacinta Lobato, and my mom works at the Arvada Center.
My granddaughter works at the Arvada Center.
My daughter works at the Arvada Center.
Hello, I'm Philip Sneed, President and CEO of the Arvada Center for the Arts and Humanities. Many of you have donated to our Reignite the Arts fundraising campaign, and we're so grateful for your support. We're well over halfway to our goal of raising $1 million by October 31st. If you have donated, thank you. This week, you're going to meet Arvada Center's digital content manager, Jacinta Lobato. She's the woman behind the camera who's been creating the videos you've been watching the last 4 months. She films and edits these stories about the creative and dedicated employees of the Arvada Center. Jacinta started working at the center a few months before the pandemic hit. Little did we know at the time how much her skills would mean for this fundraising campaign. But we're fortunate to have someone as talented as Jacinta producing these videos. Her ability to tell inspiring stories about artists is an art form in itself.
Usually when people meet me, they want to know two things about me. What was your name again? Jacinta. The second thing is they always are curious about my ethnicity. I am a 7th generation Coloradoan. Is Coloradoan even a word? My family is from the San Luis Valley. I was raised in Chama, Colorado, which is about 10 minutes outside of San Luis, the oldest town in Colorado, in this little adobe house. I am a Chicana, and I'm very proud of that. My mom had me about 1 month after she turned 16. Soon after, my sister followed.
She had 2 little girls, and she had a job.
She graduated high school and continued on to college.
And she was determined to get her degree. The women in our family have become educated without much help.
Times were tough and my dad wasn't around. My grandparents did what they could to help my mom out. My grandpa used to take me on a tractor to my babysitter's house down the block. But when they didn't have a babysitter, my grandma often took us to work with her. At the time, my grandma was a self-taught historian and a curator of the Fort Garland Museum. And at this time, she is an NEA award-winning folk artist. I was introduced to artists, members of the Colorado Historical Society. People came from everywhere just to talk to my grandma. She just is incredibly smart. I would watch her interact with people. And at some point, she picked up this art form called culture stitching to weave and tell stories of her history, of her life growing up in the San Luis Valley, the story of her people. And because of that, she started becoming recognized in the San Luis Valley as a folk artist, an accomplished folk artist. I have always had an appreciation for the arts. I've always loved the arts. I was raised around a lot of artists. I think I was about 7 years old. My grandma sat my sister and I down. We had just finished making homemade tortillas, and she said, okay, I'm gonna teach you how to culture stitch. She had this recording of the story of La Llorona on tape. We listened to the story. Now I want you to take what you heard and I want you to draw a picture. She showed us how to transfer those pictures onto fabric and then showed us how to use the culture stitch to weave and tell our story. So we did. My sister, my grandma, and I, we all drew out our interpretations. I took an alternative class and they taught us illustration, graphic design, and broadcasting. From the minute I picked up a video camera, I was instantly hooked. I would chase around all of my classmates, find the goth kids or the raver kids or the anime fans, and I would ask them, why are you dressed like this? What are you trying to achieve with this look? Are you trying to express yourself? What is it that you want people to know about you? Around the same time, I took an art class in high school with a very passionate teacher, Miss Telebert. And she was like, wow, you're really good at art. And then I started to really explore that a little bit. And I realized, hey, wait a minute, I remember this. I really like art. I kind of started to really become interested in both right around the same time. So I went to college, I went for broadcasting, and I minored in art. The documentary that I created was called Generations of Art United by Creativity. It was a really, really, really long title.
I was introduced to art at a very young age by my grandmother. My grandpa would tell me and my sisters stories about La Llorona and other stories he just made up. Me and my family would sit around and listen to him for hours.
My name is Jacinta Lobato. I'm a culture stitcher, and I've been culture stitching since 1988.
Received an internship from a local news broadcast company. And while I was there, this amazing anchor that had just started, a reporter, she said, you know, I really feel like you should maybe try looking into journalism or maybe explore becoming a reporter. I unfortunately was very young and I had no self-esteem. And I just really didn't see my value, and I did not see myself doing something like that. I just didn't believe in myself in that way. I ended up becoming a single mom right around the time that I was graduating from college, and my daughter's father was not involved. I ended up taking a job, which was a very steady, very good job. I was miserable.
That was certainly not a creative job for her, and I think that she found it very interesting to help me out because I was doing something that she considered art.
1 week and 1 day after I hit 10 years with this company, I quit. I worked as an artist for about 1.5 years. I sold paintings, I sold prints, I did lots of creative things to support my daughter.
I was always surrounded by artwork and creativity, and I practically grew up in the gallery.
Yeah,
Chalk gallery.
You became quite a culture artist yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And she did it at age 5 when I was babysitting her.
So I go to Denver School of the Arts, and my major is stagecraft and design. I build sets, I sew costumes, which is kind of similar to this. I also help with lighting and sound.
Learning from you and what she was learning from me, and it was just something that came out in her.
What I discovered when I was working as a painter, art for me is very personal. Every single one of the pieces that I've ever painted is a self-portrait. It is expressing what I was going through at that time of my life, my emotions, how I feel, who I am. It could become very hard to put yourself on the wall and to have people tell you whether they think what you've created is valuable. So I decided that I was gonna give it a shot and try broadcasting again. So when I made that decision, I didn't get any phone calls or emails. And I had to be honest with myself and evaluate why I wasn't succeeding. The reason why is because I just didn't have anything to show prospective employers what I could do. Because in this field, you have to have something. Talking to friends, brainstorming, coming up with some ideas, but I simply could not get the idea of that family documentary out of my head. I came up with the idea to recreate it. So I came up with the idea to do a whole series which was called Body of Work. My content was airing almost every day. I followed the same format as I had with my documentary. I knew that in order to get people interested in the artwork, they first needed to be invested in the artist.
My very first guest is Cindy Lucero. Cindy Lucero has been a face painter for over 15 years.
I met some really good people, some super talented people.
A lot of personal decisions I had to make that I wasn't necessarily sure of, but I thought if I just take one step at a time, including going to school in New York, that was a big deal for me.
What made me very proud was that a lot of the people that I featured were people of color, women, Latinas, voices that are not necessarily always represented. I started to realize this is who I am.
You have to want it bad enough to work for it, but you can be anything. Young girls can become anything in this life.
Fast forward, I received a couple of paying jobs. I finally broke into broadcasting, and I found myself landing a job at the Arvada Center. And I was really, really excited when I was told that the Reignite the Arts campaign was going to happen, that each week I was going to be provided the opportunity to produce a video featuring the incredible creative co-workers that I had just started to meet. I see them through a certain lens. I see them as valuable and important and necessary.
Like many things, an appreciation for the arts is passed down through the generations. For Jacinta, creating art with her grandmother at a young age made a very big impression on her. Art enhances our lives by stirring hard-to-articulate feelings and inspiring us to look beyond what we believe to be possible to imagine a more vibrant, exciting future. They also remind us that we are all creative beings, and that whether we're making art or music, telling stories, or simply sharing in the experience, we're all connected. Please consider making a donation to help reignite the arts in your community.